Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues, and with this video, I'll be discussing my thoughts on episode 9 of the anime series Log Horizon 2. And we're picking up much as I speculated in the previous episode coverage video with Shiro and his raid, and we're calling back on Christmas Eve when essentially he and his crew have their asses effectively handed to them by this particular raid boss, Luciet of the Seventh Garden. And it's really interesting the levels through which they go, attacking this sucker, and he's not acting as a conventional raid boss. You know, they're calling back on Helios, where they basically encountered a raid boss very similar to this, but this one is not doing the same sort of moves and mode changes and all those kinds of things that they're used to. They have to kind of keep on their toes and watch what exactly is unfolding as they're attacking it, and at one point they actually do enough damage to him that he goes into a mode change, this White Knight, or True White Knight mode rather, and it's really intriguing because it's almost like his armor shatters, and each of those armor flakes, if you will, the remnants of his armor, end up transforming into what they call the Shadow Vanguard, all these separate monsters that then have to be destroyed and battled, which then will siphon back into his armor and turn him back into his normal mode and that kind of stuff, and I guess buff him up a little bit. And it's really intriguing because, of course, Shiro realizes that the more people attacking him, the more of these Shadow Vanguard puppets, if you will, are going to manifest, and so they have to dial it back and just have their strongest attackers going on head first and everything like that, while all the rest of the characters heal and buff. And all the while this is unfolding, we're seeing Demikos always stopping to look at Shiro and damn him in some way, verbally and such like that, planning to take him out, planning to, do him in and make him suffer and cry tears of woe or whatever it is that he says. And finally there comes a moment where he basically takes the opportunity, because the entire raid force is completely flabbergasted when two other huge hulking raid bosses interject themselves into this battle, completely outnumbering, just by sheer force and power and skill and all that kind of stuff, all of the people involved in this raid. They wipe everybody out, Shiro included, but not before Demikos knocks Shiro on his ass. You could almost mistake it for his trying to help Shiro, but hopefully Shiro is actually the wiser and knows that Demikos was coming after him. He does question it toward the middle of the episode, which really turns the entire story on its ear, and in a much more intriguing and fascinating way. I was absolutely wowed by this episode for the getting internal with Shiro, getting into his mind, and actually much akin to how we saw Akatsuki episodes back in a sort of dream sequence she was, experiencing. We saw what she appears to be in the real world. We really got to harken back to what Shiro is in the real world. He has a very similar appearance, but there are slight differences. He looks more Japanese and everything than his character within the Log Horizon framework, the Elder Tale Come to Life MMORPG framework. And it's intriguing because we learn so much about him and how similar his relationship could be to Akatsuki, in that they're cut from the same cloth, very much as Akatsuki has put so much, weight on her shoulders and so much responsibility and has felt doubts about that and self-consciousness about that. Shiro is the kind of person who shut the world out, and he tried to take things on himself, and every time he failed as a child, he would escape. His parents were working all day long and all night long, I guess. He would go out and walk at night just to get out of the empty house that was really grueling to his psyche and scary to him and all this kind of stuff. And he'd find his way to a park where he'd sit on a bench and he'd cry his eyes out until he could process the rest of those emotions and deal with it and return back to sort of a level of normalcy, I guess, for lack of a better term. And I love how you have the grown adult, real-world Shiro sort of interjecting himself in on this dream sequence memory of his youth in a similar manner to how those extra raid bosses had interjected themselves into the current raid unfolding. And it was just really interesting because it was seeing Shiro being the most introspective and real with himself that he's been since finding himself in this Elder Tale realm. And what I really love, too, is his speculation as he comes to that point, that sort of middle realm in between life and death, as they're about to respawn where he met Akatsuki, and we finally have a legit confirmation that that was actually him, and they actually met and all this kind of stuff. It wasn't just a dream sequence of Akatsuki's where it was wishful thinking on her part. They were both really there. but he observes from afar the Earth as if looking down from the moon. And he asks, are we actually on the moon? There are 13 servers that comprise the entire worldwide Eldertale MMORPG, but there is a rumored and secretive 14th server, of which Shiro basically acknowledges is said to have been on the moon. So in effect, it's almost as if their psyches, or whatever you want to call it, are being contained within this 14th server on the moon. And he's actually literally looking down upon the Earth from the heavens, from this moon space. And then, of course, as I say, Akatsuki catches up with him. We see that entire scene play out again, only this time from his perspective, where, memories of hers have basically been dispatched, and he realizes his own memories when it comes to the name of the ramen restaurant that he saw in his hometown, which he said was very boring and was a place he wanted so desperately to escape, which is why in this Eldertale realm, it's almost like he wants to stay here. He wants to have this kind of life. He doesn't want to go back necessarily to this boring, mundane life he came from. And so there's a point where, he cuts his hair and he gives it to Akatsuki. They put it in the sort of ocean wave water on this beachhead that they're sitting on. And it's a metaphor for letting go, I think, but also the recognition of this is the process by which the memories are being taken from us. And they both resolve to put their best foot forward and try again, to keep trying in spite of their failing. Basically the most courage a person has is getting up after having fallen, is going and trying again after having failed, and they have both resolved to do so. They've given each other strength through the strength that they're both finding within themselves. And so the episode ends with Shiro coming to within the cavern, probably all the way back at the entrance of the dungeon that this raid was taking place in, and the preview for the next episode sees all of the rest of the raid characters also waking up. I have to wonder if there's going to be any recompense toward Demicas, or if they're going to, basically tell him to get lost, or if Shiro's going to just look past it and say, look, we need to work together, even if we hate each other, even if we have differences, let's settle it later, that kind of thing. Settle the score at another time. Let's work together toward this effort. And he's realized at this point that he's kept everyone at a distance and distrusted them, very much akin to how he has in the real world. And so hopefully the hope is that he's thought better of himself, and he's going to actually open up to those characters all around him, situated very closely toward him. Now Sugu, Akatsuki, all of the people he's working with in this raid, William, Massachusetts, even maybe Demicas, to hopefully bridge the gap of understanding and be more truthful and open with the plans, the goals he has set forth in this world. And what will that be ultimately? Will he be trying to look for a way to get back home, or will he be trying to find a way to keep this life perpetual and ongoing forever and ever? That remains to be seen, and I cannot wait. Loved this episode. I think as of the time of this recording, this is my favorite Log Horizon episode in the entirety of the series, even outdoing the previous episode where Akatsuki rose to the challenge and kicked the hell out of Emhart Nelreth. I think this is my favorite episode thus far, and I can't wait to see where we go from here. So otherwise, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below what you thought of this episode. If you've seen it, Log Horizon 2, Episode 9, and yeah, otherwise I hope you enjoyed the video and that it finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.